Budget and Finance will come to order. Our first bill this evening is 2014-1109. Councilman Hunt approves the application fee for contextual overlay district applications. At the request of the sponsor, this is to be deferred for 2 meetings. If I would have a motion and a second, is there any discussion on a 2-meeting deferral? Seeing none, 1109 is deferred for 2 meetings. 1141, Councilman Stein approves the issuance of tax-exempt public improvement revenue refunding bonds in a principal amount not to exceed $20 million. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. Is there discussion on 1141? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1141 is... I'm sorry? Nah. 1142, Councilman Stein appropriates $5,000 for the Fund for Cities of Services, Inc. to the Mayor's Office for the Change for Chestnut Home Energy Retrofit Project. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1142 is recommended. 1143, Councilmember Stein and Lancaster approves a grant of $7,500 from the Frist Foundation to the Metro Arts Commission to create a mobile website to provide the opportunity to self-curate art sites. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1143 is recommended. 1144, Councilmember Stein and Lancaster approves an annual state grant of $434,333 to the Davidson County Juvenile Court to provide case management and family support services to children at high risk of state custody. May I have a motion and a second? Councilwoman Moore, you're recognized.
Chair, I just wanted to find out on this community-based case management, is that a new position or what are they providing here?
Oh, here you go.
Mr. Spike's here.
Jim Swack, Juvenile Court. Councilor, I'd be happy to answer that question for you. If these aren't new positions, they are actually all on current positions that we have. These community-based probation officers, they all work and have different offices in the community. Most of them actually are in housing development offices.
Oh, okay.
And they work with the youth. We try to assign them cases there in that particular area where they're housed at. And they do the probation supervision and the case management services to make sure, based on a risk and needs assessment, they get those youth get the services that they need.
Okay, so this is based in the Napier housing area, because I've been to one of those community-based case management sites, and I was just wondering, do they have it at East Nashville? And I just remember the one in Napier or Sudicum.
We have, and for years, actually several years, the Napier Sudicum area, our office was at 81 University Court, and they just recently relocated to a former health department satellite office, and I believe it's 111 University Court. And we have, let's see, 948 16th Avenue North, 2600 Cumberland View.
Okay.
We have one on 3rd Avenue North, and then some of these folks too, they'll work out of different community centers and different, like we have one probation officer that works out of the YCAP facility on Russell Street.
Okay.
So I think we have a total, I believe we're in a total of about 12 different locations throughout the city.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other discussion on 1144? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1144 is recommended. 1145, Councilmember Stein and Lancaster approves an amendment to a state grant to the Davidson County Juvenile Court to enforce federal and state mandated child support guidelines concerning children born out of wedlock by increasing the grant amount by $987,210. Moved and seconded. Any discussion on 1145? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1145 is recommended. 1146, Councilmember Stein and Lancaster, approves a state grant of $4,392,942 to the state trial courts to fund the Davidson County Community Corrections Program. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of 1146 say aye. Opposed, no. 1146 is recommended. 1147, Councilmembers Stein and Westerholm, extends the date for the mandatory utilization of the Injury on Duty Clinic for non-emergency situations until January 1, 2015. May I have a motion? It's moved and seconded. Councilman Claiborne, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering why we're moving this 6 months into the future.
Councilman Claiborne, yes, Veronica Frazier, Metro HR. We are doing some renovations to the property, that's the building that's been rented, and it is simply, it will not be ready. We're looking to have a soft opening the first week of August, and where every council member will be invited, along with department heads and safety coordinators, so they'll have an opportunity to tour the facility, and then expecting to see the first patients the second day of September.
Okay, so it's not the contractor's request or fault, but it's Metro's request to move it forward.
Yeah, it is our request.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Tiger.
If Councilman Pardue has some old related police injuries, can he go to this clinic?
We will certainly welcome Councilman Pardue.
Thank you.
And thank you for speaking up for Councilman Pardue. We were worried he couldn't speak for himself on that. Any further discussion on 1147? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1147 is recommended. 1148, Councilmembers Stein, Maynard, and Lancaster approves an amendment to a grant from the Greater Nashville Regional Council to Metro Social Services for meal delivery and transportation services to eligible seniors and disabled persons by increasing the amount of the grant by $21,306. Moved and seconded. Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you again. I was just wondering, we approved in the budget some additional monies that could be used for meals, and so is this the same deficit that we were trying to address? And if so, how does that?
My suspicion is they get this money every year and that they're already counting on it, but here comes the answer.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Demetria Vaughn with Social Services. This is actually an amendment. It is just a one-time appropriation of like $21,306.
Okay, but I guess what I'm asking is, do these dollars do what we gave you additional money in the budget to do, because
Yes.
you didn't have the money at that time?
Yes, this is actually from GNRC, some additional funds that they had that they gave to us to use.
Okay, so how do you plan to use the money that we gave you then, if you've got
We're
money
gonna serve more people.
So you're going to serve more meals then?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions on 1148? Those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1148 is recommended. 1149, Councilmembers Stein and Lancaster approves a state grant of $2,022,571 to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish programs and deliver services to prepare youth workers for entry into the labor force. May I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. 1149 is recommended. I might say, members of the committee, for those of us that read editorials in the paper, keep in mind this is a pass-through from the federal government, the state, which goes to about a total of $7 million, of which only $90,000 is local dollars, because it was suggested that perhaps we could have used that money for pay increases rather than for using it for this purpose. 1150, Councilmember Stein and Dominy approves a state grant of $85,000 to the Public Works Department to provide assistance in maintaining and operating a permanent household hazardous waste collection site. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councilman Tiger.
At how many of our collection sites do we have the hazardous material collection available?
Hi, Sharon Smith with Metro Public Works. Currently, the East Convenience Center is the only place that has household hazardous waste.
And is the reason for that cost because of this material, or?
Yes, cost and space. When you open a new center, it's important to, have the space big enough that you can actually build one. But ultimately, putting in the building, having the staff, and all of that is a cost.
Will the new South Center, Southeast Convenience Center have this capability?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Garrett.
Forgive me, memory served me, are we supposed to have a certain number of these in the county by a certain time or something?
No, actually, the convenience centers were years ago, a state requirement that counties have them, but for the household hazardous waste, back a number of years ago, the state had some grant money for large municipal counties to build a permanent site, but the state still does their mobile collection events for the other more rural counties.
Thank you, ma'am.
Councilman Tiger.
Sharon, going back to the mobile events, we used to have the capability at community cleanup events for hazardous waste. What's kept us from doing that at this point?
Yeah, that is a state, the TDEC requirements. Because we have a permanent site, we don't qualify for the state mobile events, so we can't hold those mobile events.
But at the time that communities had cleanup events, we had a permanent site there too. Was it just a budgetary issue as why you cannot provide that service out north, south, east, west collection?
Yeah, we actually aren't supposed to, per our permit with the state, provide those.
Has that permit changed? Because as Council Lady Weiner, a couple of years ago, we were doing it in Bellevue, for instance, I know.
When Councilman Tigert's done.
I addressed a question to her.
Councilwoman Weiner.
Thank you. Yes, and in fact, when we held it the last year, we got our hand slapped for doing it because of the permit issue. And it's a state issue.
So only the state can now do that?
I mean, if the community wanted to try and hold an event themselves, they would have to get, for example, the appropriate permits. You have to have...
From you or the state?
The state. We have no authority to do that.
Can you get a permit, though, on behalf of the community?
I don't think we could.
Charlie, they told me that I had to be the one to get it as the representative for the Bellevue cleanup. That was my understanding.
Yeah. And see, the issue here is much bigger. Once you have household hazardous waste that you and I bring together and you put it in a larger group, it no longer is household hazardous waste. At that point, DOT and the Tennessee Department of Transportation consider that just hazardous waste. And so you have to have certain types of personnel who can handle that, certain types of trucks that can transport it. And for example, at Oak Ridge some years ago, somebody dropped off something radioactive, which was tens of thousands of dollars to get rid of. So the state, as you can imagine, really frowns upon these kinds of events that aren't, managed appropriately per their guidelines and DOT guidelines.
Well, but most citizens, I suspect, if you don't make it convenient for them to dispose of paint and thinners and turpentine and those type of things, are going to be frustrated and are ended up going to be tossing it in their regular garbage collection rather than, unless they're really environmentally conscious, because they're used to having a site in the old days of doing that. So I guess the best thing we can tell them at this point is, as we open more convenience centers, there'll be more sites convenient to more people in the long term?
That is our goal. So the new one in the south will have one, and hopefully one day we'll have one out in the Bellevue area as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Weiner.
Another question for Sharon or Veronica. Well, not Veronica, but Sharon. You're out of it, I know. Sharon.
She's never completely out.
Yeah, she never is. Is it possible to facilitate some type of a meeting with the TDEC people so that we can see about how we might facilitate them coming into some of our communities like Bellevue, West
TDEC?
Nashville, until...
They're not going to service a county with a permanent site. Because their resources, you can imagine, are pretty thin. There are 3 permanent sites in the state, so they're serving all of the other 92 counties. And
So
some of
here's
the counties don't get any service at all. You can go on the TDEC website and look at their list, and some of the smaller rural counties, they'll get nothing. And, I mean, we're fortunate to have a permanent site that's open 7 days a week, and soon a second site that will also be open, so.
Where's the south side going to be?
It's going to be off of Harding on Eazell Pike.
So Charlie, we just need to start looking for a site in Bellevue again.
Do you want to respond? Are y'all going to look for it today, or we're going to? Okay.
I'm on it
Okay.
right now.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion on 1150? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1150 is recommended. 1151, Councilman Stein authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Larry Spurlock against Metro for the amount of $10,000. I need a motion. Moved and seconded. Councilman Tiger.
All right, for Mr. Solomon, we've talked about this before, the pain and suffering issue. If this gentleman had hit the Metro employee, does Metro get the pain and suffering?
No, Metro does not. That would be the employee who gets it. Now, we would have if we paid IOD, for example, or we paid the medical bills, since there's another tort fees are involved, we would also put the person on notice that they are responsible to recover. They're responsible for the recovery of those amounts that we paid out. So we will seek that.
All right, I'm just, trying to do the turnabout fair play deal here is what's the theory behind Metro government paying for pain and suffering?
That's what the law, basically the law says if you're a tortfeasor, if you commit a tort, you're responsible for the person's both direct damages and special damages. And pain and suffering has historically become a component of those damages. And so you pay the medical bills, plus you get a little something else because of what we put you through. That's how the tort law has developed in this country.
Is that a percentage or just whatever you can negotiate, hopefully the lowest amount possible?
Sort of the latter, but they're a kind of a guideline. If we settle a case, we typically don't go beyond. I'm not going to tell you what if we can speak privately about that, we'll tell you about that. But generally speaking, if a judge were to decide this, it could be easily 5 times specials, which is usually the medical. And just to get you a little more irritated about this, the medical bills that the judge typically looks at will be like the off-the-shelf retail cost, not like the discounted cost that most people pay. So it's an interesting.
You're depressing me every time you speak about legal issues. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Pardue.
Now, Saul, if an employee gets hurt in the situation Charlie was talking about, he gets nothing.
The employee could sue personally if they would like to.
But Metro won't sue on his behalf.
Metro does not sue on his behalf. No, we cannot do that.
Any further discussion on 1151? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 1151 is recommended. Move to bills on second reading. 783, Council Members Davis, Stein, and others. Authorizes the acquisition of property located at 864 Idlewild Drive for a Metro Water Services project with an estimated acquisition cost of $40,400. Need a motion? Moved and seconded. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a brief comment. I did go out and check the site, and I think it was a really great spot to put this with the water facility we already have out there, very tucked away and a good property to do this. We obviously need to move forward with our consent decree responsibilities, and if we have questions for water and that sort of thing, they're here, but I support this site, and I think it'll be a good spot for it. Thanks.
Councilman Tiger.
What's the property appraised at?
Ron Taylor, Metro Water. I believe the assessed value is what's in the legislation, about $40,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on 783? Seeing none, those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 783 is recommended. 818, Councilman Stein amends the Metro Code regarding the approval of grants and the acceptance of donations. May I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Is there discussion or questions? Councilwoman Allen.
Thank you. I remember at some point, we approved a grant for like $100 or something that was so small, we wondered why we had to spend our time on it.
After we pass this, that will not happen again. If it's $5,000 or less, it doesn't take council approval. If it's $5,001, it takes council approval to accept it.
By way of a resolution.
By way of a resolution.
And none of them require an ordinance.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I mean, now and we're talking about donations as opposed to grants, but if the donation is over $5,000 in value, now you have to do an ordinance. In the future, that will just be a resolution. Anything below $5,000, no council action.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? Those in favor of 818, say aye. Opposed, no. 818 will be recommended. 820, Councilmembers Stein and Dominy, authorizes Metro to enter into a participation agreement with Caroline 2 Investment Partners to fund the operation and maintenance of a public pressure sewer extension at the Heron Point development. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, those in favor of 820 say aye. Opposed, no. 820 is recommended. Council Lady Johnson, we are glad you're with us and hope you recover quickly. We stand adjourned.